Assalamu alaikum. This is the second part of the importance of prayers. For those who haven't watched the first part, I would highly request you to please watch that. And as I said in my first part that I'm going to tell you a story about how a person who didn't give that much importance to Salah turned into a person who did. So, there was just once a guy, okay? And he used to live with his grandmother. His grandmother was really pious. He always used to remember his grandmother's warning about praying Salah on time. She used to say that, "My son, you shouldn't leave Salah to this late time." His grandmother's age was 70 years old, but whenever she heard the adhan, she got up like an arrow or lightning and performed Salah. He, however, could never win over his ego to get up and pray Salah. Whatever he did, his Salah was always the last to be offered, and he prayed it quickly to get it on time. Thinking of this, he got up and realized that there was only 15 minutes left before Salaat al-Isha. He quickly made the ablution, wudu, and performed Salaat al-Maghrib. While making tasbih of Fatima Zahra, Salatullah alayha, he again remembered his grandmother and was embarrassed by how he prayed Salah at such a late time. His grandmother prayed with such tranquility and peace. He began making dua and went down to make sajda, and stayed like that for a while. He had been at school all day and was really tired, so tired. He woke abruptly to the sound of noise and shouting. He was sweating profusely. He looked around, and it was really crowded. Every direction he looked in was filled with people. Some stood frozen, looking around. Some were running left and right, and some were on their knees with their heads in their hands, just waiting. Pure fear and apprehension filled him as he realized where he was. His heart was about to burst when he realized that it was the Day of Judgment. When he was alive, he had heard many things about the questioning on the Day of Judgment, but that seemed so long ago. Could this be something his mind made up? No, the weight and the fear were so great that he could not have imagined this. The interrogation was still going on. He began moving frantically from people to people to ask if his name had been called. No one could answer him. All of a sudden, his name was called, and the crowd split into two and made a passageway for him. Two people grabbed his arms and led him forward. He walked with unknowing eyes through the crowd. The angels brought him to the center and left him there. His head was bent down, and his whole life was passing in front of his eyes like a movie. He opened his eyes, but saw only another world. The people were all helping others. He saw that his father was running from one lecture to the other, spending his wealth in the way of Islam. His mother invited guests to their house, and one table was being set while the other was being cleared. He pleaded his case, that I too was always on the path. I helped others. I spread the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I performed my salah. I fast in the month of Ramadan. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered me to do, I did it. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us not to do, I did not. He began to cry and think about how much he loved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knew that whatever he had done in his life would be less than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deserved, and his only protector was Allah. He was sweating like never before and was shaking all over. His eyes were fixed on the scale, waiting for the final decision. At last, the decision was made. The two angels with sheets of paper in their hands turned to the crowd. His legs felt like they were going to collapse. He closed his eyes as they began to read the names of those people who were to enter Jahannam, hell. His name was read first. He fell on his knees and yelled that this couldn't be. How could I go to Jahannam? I served others all my life. I spread the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to others. His eyes had been blurry and he was shaking with sweat. The two angels took him by the arms. As his feet dragged, they went through the crowd and advanced towards the blazing flames of Jahannam. He was yelling and wondered if there was any person who was going to help him. He was yelling of all the good deeds he had done, how he had helped his father, his fasts, prayers, the noble Quran that he read. He was asking if none of them would help him. The Jahannam angels continued to drag him. They had gotten closer to the hellfire. He looked back, and these were his last pleas. Had not Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that how clean would a person be who bathes in a river 5 times a day? So too does the salah performed 5 times cleanse someone of their sins? He began yelling, "My prayers, my prayers, my prayers!" But still, the angels were dragging him to the edge of the abyss of the Jahannam. The flames of the fire were burning his face, melting his hands. He looked back one last time, his eyes now dry of hope, and he had nothing left in him. One of the angels pushed him, and he found himself in the air and falling towards the flames. He had just fallen 5 or 6 feet when a hand grabbed him by the arm and pulled him back. He lifted his head and saw an old man with a long white beard. He wiped some dust off himself and asked him, "Who are you?" The old man replied, "I'm your Salaat. I'm your prayers." "Why are you so late? I was almost burnt in the fire. You rescued me at the last minute before I fell in." The old man smiled and shook his head. You always performed me at the last minute. I didn't complain." At that instant, he blinked and lifted his head from the sajda. He was in a sweat. He listened to the voices coming from outside. He heard the adhan for Salaat al-Isha. He got up quickly and went to perform wudu. And since then, he was very punctual in his prayers. Brothers and sisters, we still have the time. We shouldn't keep everything at the last minute and then regret that we did so. We should pray our prayers before prayers are prayed for us.